A smart woman isn't simply the one who knows more. She is the one who feels less threatened by the things she hasn't yet understood. Her intelligence doesn't just lie in her speech, but in her ability to be silent, especially in her own presence. In a world that often plods noise and fast movement, the truly wise woman learns to slow her pace. She takes time to observe before acting. She waits before offering words, and in that sacred stillness, she becomes something resilient, unmoved. If you're here for the first time, welcome to Shi Heng Yi Inspiration, where we share timeless principles designed to help you protect your peace, elevate your mindset, and align with your purpose. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a message that reaches your soul, strengthens your spirit, and has the potential to shift your direction entirely. A truly wise woman doesn't measure her brilliance by how sharp her words are, but by how quiet her spirit remains. She realizes that true strength isn't proven by how loudly she speaks or how quickly she acts, but in how silently she watches and how mindfully she chooses to respond. In that space between emotion and action, between the sting of someone's words and the urge to reply, she finds the power to make a conscious choice. And it's in that choice that her value is lifted. She's not chasing perfection, she's practicing presence. And presence is rooted in emotional steadiness. There's a quiet resilience in emotional stillness that many miss in a culture addicted to urgency and volume. But the woman who conditions herself to remain steady amid emotional chaos gains access to clarity most people never touch. She doesn't let herself get swept up in every tide of drama, nor does she react to each emotional trigger. This isn't about pushing down emotions. It's about managing them with intention. That distinction matters. Picture a moment when someone you care about is emotionally flooded. Maybe it's a partner, a friend, or someone in your family. Raising their voice, venting their pain. The immediate instinct might be to match their emotion, but that's not intelligence. It's just a reflex. Emotional stillness becomes the breath you take instead of the breakdown you feel. It's the witnessing rather than the wounding. The woman who has refined this quality doesn't ignore her feelings. She simply doesn't allow them to run the show. Neuroscience teaches us that when the amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm center, is triggered, it can override our logical brain, the prefrontal cortex. But with awareness and emotional discipline, this hijack can be minimized. Just 6 seconds of deep breathing can help reset your brain and bring back rationality. What looks like a brief pause is, in truth, a deeply empowering act of emotional command. A woman who holds her inner stillness doesn't step into every battle. She chooses her reactions with purpose. She's aware that every emotional response comes with a cost, and she's no longer offering her energy freely. Her peace is non-negotiable. This isn't weakness, it's strategic clarity. Consider the story of Alina, a school counselor often overwhelmed by the chaos of her role. Between emotional students, overworked colleagues, and personal demands, she had become reactive to everything. Then, one afternoon, a furious parent stormed into her office, blaming her for neglect. The old version of Alina would have interrupted, gotten defensive, and later broken down. But something had shifted within her. She let the parent speak without interruption. She centered her breath, she stayed with the moment, and when the parent finally paused, waiting for resistance, Alina responded with calm. "I hear how deeply you care for your child. Let's work as a team to support them. Tell me more about what you've seen." Her voice held no tension, no battle lines, just presence. And that presence changed everything. The parent softened, a real conversation unfolded. That day, Alina understood that power doesn't come from overpowering others, but from not letting them overpower your inner calm. This is the silent strength of a woman anchored within herself. In love, that stillness is sacred. When your partner reacts out of fear, when tension fills the air or misunderstandings arise, the emotionally attuned woman doesn't fight fire with fire. She becomes a reflection, not another flame. She doesn't suppress how she feels. She elevates how she expresses it. She delays immediate emotional reward in favor of deeper alignment. And in doing so, she becomes a safe place for healing rather than adding fuel to pain. Stillness becomes a boundary in itself. It declares, I won't allow your storm to become my identity. And with time, this energy becomes undeniably magnetic. People gravitate to her without even realizing why. It's in her eyes, her soft tone, her graceful energy. She's not depleted by every conflict because she no longer internalizes every tension. Stillness allows a woman to hear what goes unspoken. The feelings hidden beneath words, the longing beneath the anger, the vulnerability behind the silence. When you're no longer overwhelmed by your own emotional noise, you gain the capacity to truly listen. And real listening doesn't just connect, it awakens others. There's a quote that says, amid movement and chaos, keep stillness within you. This isn't just poetic, it's deeply practical. In a tense household, the still woman becomes the stabilizer. In relationships clouded by miscommunication, she becomes the interpreter. In a life full of unpredictability, she becomes the grounding force. But this emotional stillness doesn't happen on accident. It's crafted through daily, intentional choices. When your day begins, do you leap into the noise? Or do you pause and meet yourself for a few minutes? When someone criticizes you, do you react with ego? Or do you pause, breathe, and look for the grain of truth beneath their words? These tiny moments, repeated, build emotional mastery. They seem minor, but they shape the way you navigate life. And this mastery extends to something even more powerful, your energy. Because emotional stillness directly influences the energy you radiate. A steady heart emits a different frequency. And that frequency reaches others before your words ever do. We often forget just how much our energy speaks for us. But energy isn't just a spiritual idea. It's grounded in biology. The heart produces an electromagnetic field, far more powerful than the brain. It radiates into the space around us, influencing how others feel in our presence and how they respond. A wise woman knows this. She becomes deliberate with the energy she brings into each interaction. Maybe you've felt this before. Someone enters a room and, without saying anything, the entire energy shifts. You either feel peace or discomfort, uplifted or uneasy. That's energy. And the wise woman doesn't just focus on how she appears. She prioritizes how she feels, because her feelings ripple outward and shape the environment she's in. There's a story of a woman named Elsie, a trauma nurse. Despite working in a high-stress unit, everyone felt calm around her. Even distressed patients settled down when she stepped in. When asked how she stayed so peaceful, she simply said, I prepare my energy before I walk in. I breathe, I align. I remind myself that I'm not here to react, I'm here to serve. Her energy wasn't accidental, it was intentional. This is the shift between reacting through life and living with purpose. When a woman learns to manage her energy, she stops holding others responsible for her emotional state. She becomes the one who sets the tone rather than being shifted by it. And that's perhaps the most magnetic trait of all. In love, in friendship, in leadership. A woman with powerful energy never has to chase. She draws in what resonates with her wholeness. Not because she's pretending to be complete, but because she already feels fulfilled. She's comfortable being alone, yet never feels isolated. She can exist within chaos and still exude calm. She becomes rare, and what is rare naturally draws attention. This doesn't mean she never feels low or uncertain. It means she owns her internal landscape. When she feels drained, she doesn't point fingers at the world. She traces the leak back to its source. Was it a conversation she prolonged past its truth? A mental loop she allowed to spiral? A boundary she chose not to uphold for the sake of comfort? She doesn't just feel her energy, she respects. These kinds of questions bring her back into her power. The woman who carefully tends to her energy, the way others fuss over their appearance, understands something essential. It's not your words that make people trust you. It's your frequency. Not every relationship fades because of betrayal or deception. Many dissolve simply because the energy no longer felt safe, uplifting, or deeply alive. A wise woman recognizes this. She doesn't depend only on logic to connect with others. She attunes to the feeling, the tone of someone's presence. When two people encounter each other, their nervous systems begin communicating before any words are spoken. If one person is frazzled, chaotic, or emotionally unsettled, and the other is grounded and clear, the dynamic immediately shifts. This is why people often say, "I don't know what it is about her, but I just feel peaceful when she's near." That sense of calm doesn't happen by chance. It's created with intention. But cultivating such energy isn't about pretending to be happy or covering up pain. It's about staying in alignment. It's about intentionally choosing thoughts, patterns, places, and people that uplift your inner world instead of draining it. And when this becomes a way of life, your energy turns into a sanctuary. People are drawn to your presence not because you have all the answers, but because around you, they feel more connected to themselves. There's something deeply spiritual about a woman who has mastered her energy. She doesn't need to explain herself often. Her presence says it all. She isn't easily offended because her peace isn't something that can be stolen. She's not loud, but she is deeply felt. Her presence is healing, and wherever she goes, she doesn't merely arrive, she shifts the atmosphere around her. To be a truly intelligent woman, then, is not about how much you speak, how much you give, or even how much you've learned. It's about how deeply you've chosen to sit with yourself. Emotional stillness and energetic integrity are not outer achievements. They are inner devotions. They are the quiet disciplines that shape not only how you interact with others, but how you carry your soul through the world. And when those two forces, stillness and energy, come into alignment, a woman becomes unforgettable. A woman who has grown wise to experience doesn't hand out her heart so freely that others begin to feel entitled to it. Through heartache and growth, she has come to understand that love without boundaries is not real love, it's a form of self-neglect. Her care is no longer scattered like wild seeds, hoping someone will nurture them. Instead, she plants with purpose and only in gardens where she knows her heart will be watered with tenderness and respect. A smart woman understands that boundaries are not walls meant to shut others out. They are sacred thresholds built to protect what's most precious inside. Many women are taught to be generous, warm, and giving, but not enough are taught that giving too much of yourself to the wrong people can splinter your spirit. A woman who avoids setting boundaries will eventually start resenting her own kindness. She finds herself shrinking in places where she should be expanding. She becomes exhausted, not from weakness, but from pouring herself into containers that cannot hold her. Boundaries are not about cruelty. They are about clarity. They are declarations that say, this is where I end and you begin. In relationships, boundaries are vital, not only to safeguard your peace, but to deepen true connection. Without them, love turns into a performance, a constant attempt to please, a quiet exchange where one person's needs are continually sidelined for the comfort of the other. But when a woman starts loving herself enough to say, no more, she reclaims her inner dignity. There's the story of a woman named Miriam. For years she stayed with a man who never truly saw her. He loved her when it served him, appreciated her when she made life easier, and ignored her when she voiced her needs. Miriam believed that if she just gave a little more, he would finally recognize her worth. So she kept giving her time, her energy, her silence, and eventually her self-worth. It wasn't until she sat alone in a quiet room and felt like a stranger to herself that the truth became clear. I have taught him how to treat me, she realized. She had silenced her voice, she had let the lines blur. In trying to hold on to the relationship, she had let go of herself. But one day, without anger or bitterness, she simply said, this version of me doesn't exist anymore. And she walked away, not out of hate, but because she had finally remembered how to love herself again. That is the quiet strength of boundaries. They don't need to be loud to be powerful. They are not weapons. They are mirrors, reflecting how you treat yourself and how you expect others to treat you. In healthy love, boundaries are a blessing. They show where emotional safety resides. They clarify expectations. They allow two people to grow individually, which in turn allows them to grow together. Without boundaries, relationships become murky, miscommunication increases, and resentment takes root. With them, respect flourishes. Trust deepens. Emotional safety becomes the foundation. A woman who understands this no longer participates in emotional chaos that costs her peace of mind. Psychology supports what the heart already senses. Living without boundaries leads to heightened anxiety, low self-worth, and even physical exhaustion. Every time you say yes when your heart means no, your nervous system carries the strain. Your body knows when your soul is being dishonored. That's why true fatigue is often not from doing too much. It's from doing too much that isn't aligned with your spirit. A wise woman listens to that. She no longer accepts every request, every favor, every plea for her time. She knows that no is a complete sentence. She doesn't need to justify her priorities or explain her choices to those who only value her when she's convenient. Her time is sacred, her energy is currency, her peace is priceless. Some may call her distant, but she isn't cold. She's clear, she's not unkind, she's evolved. There's a quiet power in a woman who no longer sacrifices herself just to be accepted. She's chosen authenticity over approval, and in that truth, she finds herself again. Boundaries transform how romantic relationships unfold. A woman rooted in self-worth doesn't beg for attention. She notices consistency. She doesn't demand respect. She expects it. She doesn't remain in situations where she has to keep reminding someone how to treat her. She knows that the right person will never ask her to lose herself just to be loved. When your boundaries are clear, they naturally filter out those who were only attracted to your availability, not your value. You begin to see who truly respected your presence and who simply benefited from your absence. Off limits. Sometimes this clarity brings grief because you realize some relationships only existed because you had no boundaries. But once you begin living with purpose, only those who resonate with your truth remain. Boundaries are not just about saying no to others. They are also about saying yes to yourself, yes to your peace, yes to quiet, yes to be misunderstood if it means being real. This is the true path of emotional growth, not building walls, but honoring your own depth. And as you walk in that clarity, you'll begin to notice another shift. You'll speak less, you'll argue less, you'll explain less, because the most grounded women have discovered that silence can be the highest form of wisdom. There's a world of difference between silence that stems from fear and silence born from strength. The first hides, the second refines. A woman who understands the power of peace no longer needs to win every debate, prove every detail, or fix every misconception. She recognizes that the loudest person is often the one farthest from truth. So she chooses silence, not out of defeat, but out of discernment. There's a saying, don't waste your words on people who deserve your silence. Sometimes the strongest response is no response. A woman who lives by this truth doesn't go quiet to control. She goes quiet to conserve. Her silence isn't punishment, it's preservation. Picture Zora, a woman in a relationship with a man who often raised his voice during arguments. In the past, she would mirror his anger, defend herself fiercely, lose herself in the storm. But now she's shifted. One evening during another heated moment, she simply says, I'm not continuing this conversation in this energy. Then she leaves, not to escape, but to protect the sacred space within her. Zora's silence isn't coldness, it's wisdom. She understands that engaging with someone determined to misread her is a misuse of her energy. She saves her breath for those willing to understand her. She doesn't raise her voice, she raises her standards. This is the essence of wisdom. And real wisdom speaks with few words but leaves a deeper impact. When a woman chooses silence at the right moment, she doesn't lose power. She gains perspective. In that pause, she gains vision. She sees what's truly going on. She listens not to form a response, but to understand what lies beneath the surface. And in many moments, what she realizes is this. It was never really about her. She no longer absorbs the pain of others as her own. She doesn't take everything personally. She recognizes when someone is projecting their unresolved hurt. And her silence becomes her shield. But let's be honest, silence isn't always easy. It takes deep inner strength to resist the urge to defend yourself. It takes maturity to sit in discomfort without scrambling to fix it. Yet the woman who has cultivated this ability becomes grounded in a way that's unshakable. She no longer entertains dysfunction. She doesn't argue with chaos. She is no longer fighting to be heard by those who never intended to listen in the first place. Her presence does the speaking. Her energy becomes her message. And when she does speak, people listen. Because her words carry weight. Relationships are transformed by women like her. Her partner begins to understand that when she's quiet, it's not distance. It's depth. It's time to pay attention, not to defend, but to reflect. Her children sense that peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of calm intention. Her friends come to know that her silences aren't rejections. They are moments of reflection. She becomes an emotional anchor, not because she controls others, but because she has claimed ownership over herself. Her stillness also becomes a compass. When something doesn't feel right, She doesn't force clarity. She doesn't debate the moment. She simply steps back. She allows space for truth to emerge, and it always does. She's learned that clarity doesn't always come from confrontation. Often it is born in silence, because when the talking stops, your soul finally has room to speak. A woman who knows when to be silent, when to walk away, is not just intelligent, she is deeply centered. And from that center, she makes decisions that protect her peace, not her ego, that serve her higher self, not her wounded self. She no longer confuses loudness with meaning. She no longer confuses attention with affection. She doesn't chase people to be seen. She stands in quiet, knowing her worth doesn't need convincing. Her confidence comes from a place that doesn't shout, it glows. And in that silent glow, her life begins to attract what reflects her inner radiance. Connections that nurture, not manipulate. Relationships that inspire, not drain. Love that feels safe, not chaotic. She becomes a woman of balance and grace. And everything she touches, consciously or not, begins to mirror that grace. There is a moment, so small yet so powerful, that exists between what happens to us and how we respond. And within that moment lives the true art of self-mastery. The woman who honors that space doesn't react to every emotion or provocation. She doesn't let her day be dictated by someone else's behavior. She understands that what defines her isn't what happens. It's how she chooses to respond. Response over reaction isn't a tactic, it's a lifestyle, one that reflects inner awareness and emotional sovereignty. Reactions are reflexive. They arise when we're disconnected from our awareness, when we're operating on old pain, unprocessed stories, or fear-based conditioning. These reactions are the words we regret, the tone we wish we could take back, the choices that cost us peace. They emerge from fight, flight, or freeze, the nervous system's protective instincts. But when a woman breathes, truly breathes, before she speaks, something shifts. A different part of the brain awakens. Her clarity returns. Science supports this. When we feel threatened or betrayed, the amygdala, the brain's alarm center, goes into overdrive, flooding the body with cortisol and adrenaline. But studies show that even 6 seconds of deep breathing can restore balance. That's all it takes, just 6 conscious seconds for the prefrontal cortex, the rational mind, to re-engage. And that's where wisdom lives. That's the neurological space where maturity begins. In those 6 seconds, a woman asks herself, do I want to repeat the past or write a new chapter? Imagine a woman named Sanna. She's sitting across the table from her partner, who just said something dismissive in a tense moment. Her body tightens. Her chest feels heavy. She feels the impulse to raise her voice, to defend, to shut down. But instead, she pauses. She lowers her gaze, places her hand gently over her heart, and breathes. One long, intentional breath. In that breath, she reconnects with her truth. She's not the hurt girl from yesterday. She's not the woman begging to be heard. She's the one who has done the inner work, the one who honors her peace above all else. And when she speaks, it is with calm strength. I hear you. I need a moment before I respond. Then she steps away, not to retreat, but to recenter. She sits in quiet until her emotions soften and her clarity returns. This is not avoidance. This is self-respect in action. This is wisdom embodied. She's not ignoring her feelings. She's simply giving them space to breathe before letting them speak. And when she returns to the conversation, her words create connection, not division. Her grace makes healing possible. The conflict doesn't destroy the relationship, it strengthens it. Not because it never happened, but because she refused to let it destroy the love, hearing in love. Choosing a response over a reaction is one of the deepest forms of care. It means seeing the other not as an opponent, but as someone in pain. It means hearing more than just their words. It means listening to their wounds. Because the real arguments aren't always about what's being said. They're about what hasn't been healed. When two people both learn to pause, to breathe, to respond, trust grows, vulnerability deepens, communication transforms. But often it only takes one person to lead this shift. To live this way, a woman must practice self-inquiry. When triggered, she quietly asks herself, what part of me feels unsafe right now? Is this reaction about the present or about something from long ago? Do I want my next words to build a bridge or burn one? These questions aren't pressure to fix anything immediately. They're gentle lights guiding her toward self-awareness, like candles lit in the dark corners of her inner world. There was a woman named Ila. Raised in a home where emotions exploded without warning, she learned early on to respond to tension with fire. Her body became conditioned to protect itself through defensiveness. In her adult life, she repeated these patterns. A raised voice from a partner would ignite panic. A simple disagreement would trigger abandonment fears. But Ila began to unlearn. Through journaling, mindfulness, inner work, she began to interrupt the pattern. One night, her partner forgot something important. Old Ila would have attacked. But this version of her paused. She felt the disappointment rise. She allowed herself to feel it fully, but didn't let it dictate her words. Later, she said simply, "That really hurt me. I needed that moment and felt invisible." Not in accusation, but in vulnerability. Her partner didn't shut down. He didn't get defensive. He softened. He listened. And in that space, something new was born between them. This is how emotional evolution unfolds. It doesn't look like perfection. It looks like presence. These are the women reshaping how love is lived. Women who no longer exist on emotional autopilot. Women who aren't constantly reacting to life, but instead consciously choosing how they show up for it. They are creators of their emotional reality, not captives of it. They know that their internal landscape is the soil where love either blooms or withers, and so they protect it, nourish it, honor it. And this awareness begins in the body, because the body is wise. The tension in your jaw, the flutter in your chest, the flush in your face, these are not problems, they are messengers. A woman tuned into herself learns to listen. When her body whispers, she responds, not with force, but with compassion. She stretches, she walks, she breathes, she writes, she feels, she returns to her center before returning to the situation. And in doing so, she doesn't just manage emotions, she models emotional intelligence for everyone around her. The deeper truth is this: how we respond to others mirrors how we respond to ourselves. If a woman is harsh with her own emotions, she will be quick to judge others. If she is impatient with her own wounds, she will dismiss others' pain. But when she begins to treat herself with patience, softness, and respect, that same energy flows into every relationship. Her presence becomes safe ground. Her children learn regulation, not by being taught, but by being shown. Her friends come closer, knowing they can be real without fear. Her partner evolves, not by demand but by inspiration. She doesn't force people to grow, she grows, and the space around her transforms.